Got a replay here from PPMI versus Rider of Reaver's Mark. Wood Elves, Dark Elves. Not actually El Clasico. Not a lot of Wood Elf, Dark Elf interaction. In the lore, I guess even in the map. I guess there's the Sisters of Twilight and Nagaron, but that's it. Otherwise, the rest of the Wood Elves can't really reach any Dark Elves. So, a bit of a rarity, but some elf on elf violence. Front line of Dryads, backed up by Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts. Orion, King of the Wild Hunt, happy to see him. Hounds of Orion, Colossal Strike, and Hawk's Talon. A lot of characters are getting Colossal Strike these days. Crap ton more Glade Guard, some have Hagbane tips, some have nothing. And Glade Riders, and a Melkoth's caster. Neat. For the Dark Elves, pretty standard build as far as I've seen. Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, backed up by Dark Riders, and then some Dark Shards, and a Caster of Fire. That's all pretty fine. Scourger and Chariots as well. Little interesting is triple Doomfire Warlock. Pretty neat for the build. Not unheard of in this matchup, though. Wood Elves do have a lot of physical resistance, so the magic attacks of the Doomfire Warlocks can cut through them. And also, Wood Elves aren't known for having high armor, so the lack of armor piercing is not really such a big deal. And Coldwind Knight's armor piercing is wasted a bit. Supreme Sorceress of Fire did run up to do a burning head on 2 different archer units, but this does leave her exposed, and she's now in melee with Dryads and getting shot from multiple sources, so a lot of damage on the Dark Elf Lord this early on. She even routs, which is a pretty bad start for the Dark Elves. For the Wood Elves, they are heavily outmatched in the Cavalry game. There is more and better units on the Dark Elf build, so they need to buy their archers what little time they can, and the archers need to kill the Cavalry while they are bound up so that they don't just get run down. Meanwhile, the frontline fight is kind of mixed. Dryads are winning a couple engagements, especially when supported by Orion, but elsewhere we see some Dread Spears and Doomfire Warlocks breaking through, so Wood Elf archers are already in trouble. Wood Elves take a very early lead on the balance of power. 1, because of getting so much early damage out on the Supreme Sorceress, and 2, just getting a lot of damage out in general with your ranged units generally gives you an early game advantage. So we can see here, with the support of 2 archers previously, this Glade Rider does get rid of the Dark Rider, but behind it, Dark Riders, Spears, and Doomfire Warlocks are running down their various Glade Guards, so that Glade Rider is going to have to turn back and defend their guys, but it looks like for now they're just going to chase the Dark Riders to the death. That, or the Wood Elf player hasn't noticed that they won their fight and are leaving yet. Doomfire Warlocks at the edge of death go to fight the King of the Wild Hunt for just a second. He is chucking a spear into their face, killing him off, but they do use their bound Doombolt on him while he's soul blighted. That should do a decent amount of damage. Doombolt, I think it got nerfed in the recent hotfix. If not, it'll get nerfed in the next one, I imagine. But that lesser Doombolt they bring is just a nice little poke on a single entity like Orion. Glade Riders did return. They're now fighting the Dark Riders on top of the archers. The archers need to find safety where they can stop and shoot. And a couple of them are starting to rally from their routes, and now there's no one around them at all, so they should be able to stop and get some decent shots off. I wonder if anybody spends time shooting at the Sorceress of Fire and routing her again. They maybe could. I doubt in a battle this spread out that the Dark Elf player is keeping an eye on their Lord while they're chasing off random Dryads. Yeah, one of the archers is going to try and get some extra poke for free. Orion's getting very low, but do remember he has the Cloak of Isha, so he gets much tankier, but also starts healing once he gets below a certain health point. Nobody's captured the central point yet, and we do have 6 out of 8 potential Scourger and Chariots still running around, and they are now shooting at Orion as he throws down a Hounds of the Wild Hunt on a Dark Shard, gets rid of them. Bounce power is creeping back towards the center, but is still in the Wood Elf's favor just slightly. So we do have this weird enclave of... That looks funny. It looks like the Burning Head was going to do like a jump off the dunes, but clearly it's not. It's just going to follow the thing. Anyway, we have a little enclave of 3 archers, but one of them gets absolutely massacred by a beautiful Burning Head. And it looks like they might rout from the damage. No, they are going to hold for now. Orion has decided to take it upon himself to chase down the Sorceress of Fire. Really wants to go for the Lord Snipe. Obviously get rid of the magic, but also lower the leadership of these Dark Elves, because you can see a couple units are close to routing. I don't know if this is correct, though, because she is just leading him on a wild goose chase. She is very fast, 92 speed to his 43. So yeah, he can't catch her, and him leaving does leave this whole area open to just get murdered. Now, maybe he wanted to avoid Scourge Runner poke. It's possible, but I would have liked to see him dive headfirst into some Doomfire Warlocks and just peel for his backline / get in a fight. More archers are rallying. You can see how hard it is for the Dark Elves to get rid of these guys when there was like 8 archers for them to run down with 7 cavalry. And that's assuming all the cavalry didn't get stopped or shot on the way in, which is not true, of course. Dark Riders rout off. Glade Riders should save their Starfire Shaft guard, but nope, the Glade Guard rout anyway, as the Spellcaster tries to peel with a Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma. Orion is starting to heal. We can see the Cloak of Isha has procced as he terror routes off some infantry, and then he might resume his chase of the Sorceress, though I do think that is a bit folly. Melkoth's caster does have to now deal with Scourge Runner chariots that are trying to sideswipe some Dryads. They will punt a couple of those tree people off into the distance, but the archers are the bigger threat. Archers with Starfire Shafts, armor piercing, trying to get a little bit of damage in there, but Doomfire Warlocks are on the case. Other Starfire Shafts opening up on the Doomfire Warlocks that are actually crazy low at this point. They might just rout away before taking out these other Glade Guard. They do, and they even shatter. Once again, we have 3 archers up and online for the Wood Elves. One of the Scourge Runners shatters. The other one is slowed by a Melkoth's. Definitely not using that for the damage, using it for the slow. Meanwhile, Orion seems to be in trouble of his own. Throws down the Hounds of Orion on himself to do good damage to the Doomfire Warlocks. A little unlucky of the Vortex direction as it entirely abandons him. The Hound's not here for their lord. And he's taking a lot of damage right now from the Doomfire Warlocks, who are blessed by Flaming Sword of Ruin, making his physical resistance useless, though they already had magic damage, so his physical resistance was already a suspect. And Orion is gone, damaging the leadership of the Wood Elves. I imagine all these archers that were barely hanging on will probably run for the hills now. One of them still has enough leadership to stay in the fight, though does have to run from Bleak Swords, which are not faster, and especially when they're slowed down by Melkoth, they're not faster. Wood Elves' last hope is to rally with this last decently healthed archer. It still has 2/3 of its models, so that's a lot of damage potential, even though its health and leadership are so low. Glade Riders take a charge of the Doomfire Warlocks, just hoping to get explosive charge damage down. They know they can't win that fight leadership-wise or stat-wise, but they did take about half the remaining HP from the Doomfire Warlocks on the charge, so that does seem worth it. Bleak Swords, despite having significantly lower speed, no, it's only 2 lower now. I was going to say they're keeping this gap between them and the archers rather close despite their speed difference. We have some Eternal Guard in the distance that could maybe matter, but really it's down to a nearly full health Dread Spear, a 1/3 health Bleak Sword, and then an almost dead Sorceress of Fire versus a 1/3 health Burning Headed Glade Guard, so they're just going to get routed off by that spell. Really, it is down to just, can this Spellsinger of Shadows carry? She does have a good spell for the situation, Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma. If she just kites out, she can just poke, depending on her winds of magic left, right? She can poke the Bleak Swords and then the Dread Spears down, but she actually is just going to take the fight. Opal Amulet popped as she fights the Bleak Swords, but there's no support for her, no archers coming in, so I don't know why she's bothering to take this fight. And the Bleak Swords get buffed up by a Flaming Sword of Ruin. She should just be running away and casting spells, though. There was no reason for her to just jump in and fight, so that seems like a rather costly mistake, as she's just getting shredded. I think the only fight she should have taken is if the Sorceress of Fire wanted to come fight her, because at the time she had 2,000 health and that lady had 1,100, so it's like, if you have double the health of the enemy lord, you can maybe fight them for a bit, but just jumping into Bleed Swords and dying is a bit of a whoopsie. I think what he wanted to do was just shock damage them and try and route them off the map, but definitely overestimating how much this little Wood Elf hero can put out in melee. Dryads did fine. Archers generally did quite well. None of them standing out as like spectacular, but also none of them really doing a bad job. For Rider of Reaver's Mark, mixed value on the cavalry, though they were what won the game. Again, having to shut down those archers. Scourge Runners did okay, not great. Bleak Swords did fine. GG's. Roar.
Subscribe, yes.